Okay, here we go. Jordan Losavio. Thank you. Awesome, thank you everyone. I am Jordan Losavio. I work with Dr. Sarah Dion, her team over at Illuminate Natural Health. And today we're going to talk a little bit about movement as a strategy for longevity. Sorry, I'm still learning how to use this clicker. All right, here we go. Perfect. So I want to give a little context to the word longevity. So I want to start by defining two terms, both lifespan and health span. So you're probably familiar with the term health span or lifespan, which is essentially how long we live, right? How many numbers of years we live. But there's actually another term called health span, and that refers to essentially the quality of life over those years. All right, and we've kind of accepted that age-related diseases happening at a younger and younger age is becoming more normal. But in reality, that's far from the truth. It is not normal. It's common, but it's not normal. There are centenarians and seniors out there currently running marathons and hiking room to room from the Grand Canyon, all right? So the idea is, that what I want to try to present to you is that there are ways and strategies where we can combat that, those age-related diseases, push them further and further out. All right, so modern medicine has been great at extending that lifespan, but in reality, it hasn't been that great in extending our health span. All right, so the question is, what if there was a pill, okay, hang in here with me, that you could take a preventative pill in middle age that could reduce your risk of cancer by up to 50%, that could lower your CRP or C-reactive protein, it's an inflammatory marker, that could reduce your risk of physical disability by 30%, or what if you could take this preventative pill in middle age and reduce your chances of Alzheimer's by 90%, or reduce the onset of disease by 10 years. All right, and there's plenty more. What if I told you this same pill, this one pill, could also reduce your risk of all of those major diseases like cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, depression, dementia, better than any existing medication on the market? You probably figured out where I'm going with this, right? It's exercise, okay? So exercise is something that you can implement every day to extend that lifespan and your health span. All right. Perfect. So how exactly does exercise do this? I'm going to introduce a term called hormesis, all right? So stick with me through the technical talk, all right? So we know that too much stress on the body is harmful, but actually a little bit of stress on the body, like a controlled stress, can actually make your body more resilient and stronger. So I want to apply this concept to exercise, because it's a perfect example. When we exercise, we stress our muscles and our heart, our organs in a controlled way. And when we do that, we build back a body that is more resilient and healthier in the long run. And this happens through a bunch of different cellular processes. One is called autophagy, and what that does is basically clean out that cellular waste in the body. Another one's called unfolded protein response, which actually takes those damaged proteins out of circulation in the body and gets you those new healthy proteins that you need for so many of your different metabolic and body processes. I might as well continue. Perfect. Now I want to talk a little bit more about the different strategies of exercise that we can use to maximize those processes we talked before. So quick show of hands, I'm going to do a little bit of interactive. How many of you are cardio junkies? Running, cycling? All right. All right, what about my CrossFit crew or my weightlifters? Anybody like to lift weights? And then last but not least, what about my yogis and my Pilates people? Yes, awesome. Got a lot of those in the room. So I'm not here to tell you that one's better than the other, because in reality, we need all three in order to maximize our longevity. Now I'm going to make this a little personal. How many of you in your 70s want to be able to lift your grandchild off the floor? Right? Yes. What about in your 80s want to be able to hike on a hilly trail comfortably? It's not outdoor people. Perfect. And then what about in your 90s just being able to carry a bag of groceries from your car into your house? Right. Okay, so I want you to take these questions And I want you to think about that as your long-term goals for your future self. All right? And we're going to develop a strategy that we can implement today so we can still do all the things we enjoy in the future. So we're going to talk a little bit more about these in detail, starting with aerobic conditioning, and that is that cardio repeats we're talking about. So talking about running, cycling, even high-intensity interval training. And what that does, what cardiovascular exercise does, is it actually strengthens your mitochondria. Your mitochondria are the powerhouse of your cells, okay? And as we age, that mitochondria number declines, but it also declines in quality. Okay, so with aerobic exercise, luckily, we have the ability to retrain our mitochondria to grow more and grow stronger. And that's exactly some of the strategies to accomplish whenever you practice aerobic exercise. Another concept I want to introduce is called VO2 max. And this is basically a measurement of the maximum rate at which your body can utilize oxygen. So, why do we care about that? Well, more oxygen means that your mitochondria can function better. They have enough of that oxygen to be able to create energy, or ATP. The more energy we can create, then that in turn turns into less risk of those age-related diseases that we were talking about before. One of the interesting things about VO2 max I'll quickly touch on, there are so many very, very interesting studies on this if you want to dig into the literature, but one study particularly that was published in 2022 found that poor cardiorespiratory health or fitness actually carried a higher risk of death than smoking. All right, so when we're talking about these interventions, they are very powerful, and they have a pretty serious impact on your health and lifestyle. Awesome. So let's dive into a couple of strategies to both increase that function of our mitochondria as well as our VO2 max. So there's something called zone 2 training, and this is exercising at a pace where you can still talk, but maybe you don't want to hold a conversation, all right? You're not hitting your max, but you're not exactly comfortable, right? And when we're operating there, what we're doing is utilizing certain muscle fibers called type 1 or slow twitch muscle fibers. And these muscle fibers use a lot of mitochondria. They are the most dense mitochondria of any muscle fiber you have. So again, by specifically training these muscle fibers, we're increasing that mitochondria, which again turns into that lower risk of chronic disease. Another type of training is called that VO2 max training we talked about earlier. And what that does is, it's similar to HIIT training or high intensity interval training, except we're taking those intervals and spreading them out longer. So instead of being 60-second intervals, you're looking at intervals that are anywhere from 3 to 8 minutes. And in that time, you're trying to sustain your max output over the course of that time, followed by about the same amount of recovery or whatever it takes to get your heartbeat back down to, or your heart rate down to about 100 beats per minute. And again, what that does is it's going to help to offset that natural decline in VO2 max as we age. As I mentioned, extremely good predictor of longevity. So if we can somehow minimize that decline through training, then again, we extend our longevity and our health span. Notice I'm not giving you a specific formula. I'm not saying, hey, I want you to go out here and I want you to run 10 miles. That's not the point of this. The point of this type of exercise training is meeting you where you are with your cardiorespiratory fitness and working to get better. And that right there is enough to begin healing your body and extending that lifespan. All right. So we talked about VO2 max and how important that is as a predictor of longevity. The higher your VO2 max, the lower your risk of overall death. All right. But actually, there are some studies that suggest that actually strength is a better predictor of longevity than VO2 max. All right. One study found that by focusing on your strength, you can actually extend your lifespan despite scoring low on that cardiorespiratory scale. So it might actually be better. So one of the reasons why this might happen is because when we exercise and use our muscles and grow our muscles, we are able to activate certain proteins in the body that not only balance our blood sugar, but also heighten that insulin sensitivity. And also we can also regenerate that cellular repair, which is called that autophagy on a cellular level. Now zooming out, again, we're getting way into the details here, but if we zoom out and look at the importance of muscle more on a macro scale, muscles are what holds your bones intact and upright. Okay, we need those muscles in order to have proper bone density. They support that bone density. Unfortunately, as we age, adults lose around 8% of muscle mass per decade, and that accelerates towards your later years. So it's really important to build that foundation of strong muscle now, rather than wait until we're older trying to build muscle, because there's also a lot of evidence that as we age, it becomes very difficult to put that muscle mass on. So we're going to talk about some strategies to do this. There are some fundamental movements you can do to really engage all of those core muscles, as well as improve your core stability. And for those who are looking at things like squats and push-ups or planks, depending on wherever you're at with your current muscle strength or your mobility. Another thing too that I want to point out is grip strength. So that is essentially your grip strength, how tight you can hold something. This is actually an extremely good predictor of longevity, just how tight you can hold, because it demonstrates it's a good proxy for your overall muscle strength by your grip strength. One very interesting study that I just want to touch on looked at grip strength with incidence of dementia, and they actually found that the stronger grip strength reduced your chances of dementia pretty significantly. All right? Pretty interesting correlation there. Another thing too I want you to think of when you're exercising, you want to make sure you're moving in two ways. You're lengthening and contracting your muscles. And what that means is if we're lifting something off the ground, we're focused on that controlled lift, you want to focus on that same control as we lower as well. And that's going to give us that impact of both shortening and lengthening the muscles. One last thing about this is I want you to imagine, again, from that longevity lens, whatever strength movements you're doing, they should mimic the activities you want to be able to do when you get older. So if you want to lift something off the ground, if you want to grab something from overhead, you want to make sure that you're training those muscles, again, because it's very difficult to put on muscle as you continue to age. All right, stability. This is some people's absolute favorite, and it's some people's absolute least favorite. All right, but what the important concept here is that how we move is just as important as actually moving. We've already gone over all the benefits of moving, but really that how we move has a huge impact on whether or not we are healthy at the end of the day. And that's because stability is the difference between healthy exercise or injury, right? So one thing to look at is, has anyone ever seen a toddler squat down, play with a toy? And you're like, how do they do that? How do they do that? We're born with this innate mobility. Like we are able to safely move our body. But as we continue to age, sitting all of the time, sitting at a desk working, all of that's going to cause our bodies to compensate in different ways, and we lose that ability. So it's really important to retrain your muscles, retrain your body on how to move safely, again, to avoid that injury. Another thing I want to point out is the word fascia. So this is something that you've probably heard of, some of you maybe not, but it's a connective tissue that's made up of collagen in the body, and when it's healthy, can support healthy movement and prevent injury. As we age, that fascia can become restricted due to a lot of different things, whether it be inactivity, trauma, stress, poor posture. So it's really important to support that fascia network by working it. We'll talk about a little bit about the strategies to do that. Perfect. So bringing it back to that fascia network, some of the ways to support your fascia include things like dry brushing, which is literally just taking a dry brush, rubbing your body. Another thing is obviously lengthening the muscles and stretching the fascia manually. And then also another great thing is hydration. When our fascia is not properly hydrated, it's going to get sticky, it's going to be less mobile. Beyond that, when we think about stability training, again, I want you to think about doing things, I want you to think about the movements you want to be able to do in the future and make sure we are adequately stretching the muscles, lengthening the muscles. Things like Tai Chi, I'm not sure if you guys got to participate in the demo earlier today. Yoga is also another great way to lengthen and stretch the muscles and also the fascia. Something I want to touch on again is that toddler that's able to squat. All right? So one way we can retrain the body to move properly is something called dynamic neuromuscular stabilization. And that's where we essentially retrain our mind and our muscles to work together to move in a proper way. There's also a lot of great other things you can look into. Foot yoga, working on foot dexterity is a great one, and then breathing exercises. We often take for granted how breathing properly affects our movement and inability to sit up properly and move our bodies. Perfect. All right, so we talked about the benefit of exercise, but in reality, we have to balance that with recovery. And again, that's because that exercise puts a temporary stress on the body, which we've proven through that concept of hormesis to be helpful. However, if you don't take time to recover, we're never reaching that parasympathetic state. And in that parasympathetic state of your nervous system is where you get those benefits. That's where your body heals. That's where you regain, that's where you rebuild the muscle. All the benefits come right there. Now, if you're over-exercising or you have chronic stress, what's going to happen is you're never going to make it back. You're never going to make it back to that parasympathetic state. So it's really important to balance the two. There's a lot of different recovery techniques you can implement. Proper nutrition is one of them. Proper sleep is one of them. Another is all those relaxation techniques. Could be gentle yoga, or it could be something along meditation. But all those are going to help you get into that parasympathetic state where you can actually take advantage of all the benefits of exercise. All right, so we'll talk a little bit, touch on nutrition. I know Kylie talked a lot about nutrition earlier, but specifically I want to talk about nutrition related to exercise. So one of the most important things we need to fuel our bodies for exercise is protein. I promise you, a majority of us are not getting enough protein in our diets. All right, so implementing strategies to get more protein, but not just more. We have to worry about the quality of that protein. Plant protein is not a general complete protein. Animal protein is going to be your best source of protein because it is a complete amino acid profile. If you are vegan, you're going to need to make sure you're supplementing to get enough of that protein in and the right combinations of protein. In addition to that, when we're looking at key nutrients for both muscle and bone health, vitamin D, calcium, creatine, there's a few more listed here. All of these can be taken supplemental in order to kind of help that repair system. And speaking about collagen, we talked about the fascia and how it's primarily made up of collagen. There are certain supplements that can support that collagen production, and collagen does decrease as we age. And you'll hear a lot of people start complaining about arthritis and things like that, and that can be due to, again, that diminishing collagen or that tightness in the fascia network. So these are a few supplements you can try, along with foods like bone broth that are naturally high in collagen. All right, now we get to nerd out a little bit about some biohacking techniques when it comes to exercise. The first one is some interesting studies about rhythmic patterns. We've talked about these different types of exercise, but doing them rhythmically has been shown to not only build strong muscles, but it can actually cause communication between the brain and the spinal cord in order to send signals that strengthen your immune system and improve your emotional regulation. This is super interesting. Something that is rhythmic might be obviously dancing, Tai Chi, even sweating. It's that rhythmic movement where you're moving both sides. All right? And then hot and cold therapy is also something you can apply. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about that, like the cold plunges or the sauna usage. And when we expose ourselves to hot and cold therapy, what we're doing is we're activating the exact same thing that exercise does, that hormesis. I'm going to keep coming back to that, hormesis. Does the same thing. It puts the body under that temporary stress or shock, and that gives you the ability to rebuild healthier, essentially. The interesting thing that I want to note on heat therapy, these saunas are becoming increasingly more popular, but one interesting study found that sweating through exercise was actually more effective at detoxing heavy metals than sauna usage alone. All right, so I hope this encourages you to get moving outside in this Louisiana heat, get a little sweat, all right, detox those heavy metals. All right, so exercise in summary, it is a cornerstone of longevity. All right, exercise can be as simple as walking. Walking 20 minutes a day. You just walk 20 minutes a day. You can increase your lifespan and your health span significantly. You can reduce your risk of these age-related diseases, cancer, type 2 diabetes, all of it, all the ones we talked about, by up to 40%. That's major. There is no pill that you can take that can do that. If exercise was a pill, like you said, it would be the best-selling pill on the market. And this is something that is free to you that you can do. When we talk about longevity, obviously exercise is important, but I want to stress that Longevity takes an all things wellness approach, and that's why we're here today, all right? We also have to include a balanced diet. We need to focus on proper sleep. We need to focus on proper hydration, stress management, emotional well-being. All of these things are going to play a role into the quality of your life in later years. And if you look around, there's so many awesome vendors. I haven't even gotten a visit with all of them, but there's so many awesome vendors in this room, as well as health experts that you can talk to help you and guide you on your health journey. So I hope you take the time to walk around today and meet and talk to all these different people. If you did want to find me, you can find me at the Illuminate Natural Health booth with Dr. Sarah. She'll be giving a talk shortly after me. And yeah, if you want to connect through social media, I do have a little QR code here you can scan. But thank you so much for your attention today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And you were a champ with my clicker that wasn't working. So it is so true how much movement is so valuable and so important. And I see it every day in my own mother, who unfortunately is very debilitated from dementia, but also she doesn't move around much at all. So there is barely any muscle mass that she has, and I've come to learn as a result of meeting with people like Jordan, reading the book Outlive by Dr. Peter Attia, is that we need to build up our muscle mass now if we want to be doing simple tasks in our 80s, like picking up our grandkids. And so things that we do now can directly impact the things that we have later. So it's very important. So please do visit with Jordan over along that way.